He walked into that hotel lobby with pride. Not arrogance, just quiet confidence. Years of hard work had brought him here, and tonight was supposed to be a celebration. But as soon as Malik approached the counter, the air changed. The receptionist's smile faded. The manager's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, his card was declined, his tone questioned, his presence unwelcome. People watched like he didn't belong in a place he paid to be. What they didn't know was that this moment of humiliation wouldn't break him. It would build the fire that changed his entire destiny. Morning light filtered through Malik's apartment window, painting soft gold on the edges of his desk. The room spoke of discipline, neatly folded clothes, a single cup of coffee steaming beside a worn leather notebook. Malik was 34, a self-made man who'd built a small but promising real estate business from scratch. Every deal he made, every late night he worked, carried the weight of his family's sacrifices and the quiet promise he'd made to himself years ago, to never let anyone make him feel small again. He wasn't rich. Not yet. But he was getting there. The meeting he had that day at the downtown Grand Horizon Hotel wasn't just another appointment. It was the kind that could change everything. Investors were flying in from Atlanta and Chicago, ready to hear his pitch for a new luxury property venture. Malik had prepared for weeks, rehearsing every line, refining every number, making sure nothing could go wrong. As he adjusted his tie in the mirror, his reflection carried both pride and pressure. Outside, the city moved fast, horns, footsteps, conversations blending into the hum of ambition. Malik smiled faintly. He'd come a long way from the cramped apartment he once shared with his mother. Today felt different. But as he picked up his briefcase and headed out the door, he had no idea what waited for him inside that hotel lobby. The stares, the whispers, and the moment that would not only test his patience, but redefine the man he thought he was. The hotel's marble floor gleamed beneath Malik's polished shoes as he stepped toward the front desk, confidence in every stride. He'd rehearsed this moment for weeks, but nothing could have prepared him for what came next. The receptionist looked up, smiled briefly, then froze. Her gaze lingered on his skin, her expression tightening as though she'd just seen something out of place. "Good afternoon," Malik said, placing his ID and reservation details on the counter. She didn't move. Instead, she cleared her throat and whispered something to a man in a navy suit standing nearby. The man's eyes flicked toward Malik, scanning him from head to toe, not with curiosity, but with suspicion. Seconds turned into a silence that felt heavier than any words. Guests nearby pretended not to stare, but their glances told the story. Malik's reservation, which had been confirmed twice, was suddenly not showing in the system. The receptionist's tone shifted from polite to dismissive. "Sir, you may have made the wrong booking. This is a luxury property," she said softly, as if to keep her insult private. Malik's chest tightened. He pulled up the confirmation email on his phone and slid it across the counter, his voice calm but firm. The manager leaned in, glanced at the screen, and nodded slowly. "We'll need to verify this with our corporate office," he said. "It'll just take a moment." But that moment stretched endlessly. Security appeared, uninvited, standing just a few steps behind him. No threats, no accusations, just presence. The kind that says you don't belong here. Malik could feel the weight of every stare in the lobby pressing against his back. He tried to stay composed, but humiliation burned beneath the surface. He'd faced this kind of treatment before. Subtle, polished, hidden behind corporate smiles. But this time, it was different. He had clients arriving in less than an hour, investors who trusted his professionalism. He couldn't afford a scene. Yet, as he stood there waiting, the whispers grew louder. Someone snapped a photo. The manager lowered his voice, saying they were still reviewing the issue, as if Malik's presence itself required investigation. Then, the final insult came. The manager gestured toward the exit, suggesting Malik Wait outside until things are sorted." For a moment, he stood frozen, disbelief painted across his face. He wasn't angry yet, just empty. The kind of emptiness that comes from being reminded, yet again, that no amount of success can outrun prejudice. He turned slowly, his reflection flashing across the lobby's glass doors. Suit, briefcase, dignity barely holding together. Outside, the cold air hit harder than expected. Cars passed. People walked by, unaware that inside that marble lobby, respect had just been denied again. Malik took a deep breath, looked up at the hotel's towering logo, and felt something shift inside him. Not defeat, but resolve. They thought they'd humiliated him. They had no idea they'd just fueled his rise. Malik stood on the sidewalk, his breath clouding in the cold air, his heart pounding louder than the city traffic. He had built his career on professionalism, on patience and poise, but this time, something cracked. Through the glass doors, he could still see the manager talking to security, gesturing toward him like a problem that needed to be removed. Every word felt like a slap. He stepped back inside. The lobby fell quiet again, eyes turning toward him as if his very presence disturbed the space. His voice was steady, but his words carried the weight of every humiliation he'd ever swallowed. "I have a confirmed reservation," he said, "and I won't be leaving until I get what I paid for." The manager's expression hardened. "Sir, if you continue to cause a disturbance, we'll have to escort you out." There it was. Escort you out. The polite phrase that meant erase your dignity quietly. Malik could feel his pulse rising, but he refused to give them the satisfaction of anger. Instead, he reached into his briefcase and calmly pulled out printed documents, financial statements, and property records. Proof that he was no stranger to luxury. Proof that he belonged. The manager glanced at the papers, then at Malik, but said nothing. The silence was thick, uncomfortable. Guests watched, unsure whether to pity him or pretend not to notice. And then security stepped forward. One guard gently placed a hand on Malik's arm, not aggressively, but enough to make the message clear. For a split second, the world seemed to freeze. The humiliation, the disbelief, the fire building in his chest, it all collided into a single, unforgettable moment. He pulled his arm back, looked the manager straight in the eyes, and said quietly, "Someday, you'll remember this moment. I promise you." Then he turned and walked out, not defeated, but awakened. They thought they'd silenced him, but that lobby, that humiliation, had just created a man the world would soon know by name. Years passed, but Malik never forgot that day in the hotel lobby. The humiliation didn't fade. It hardened into purpose. Every insult, every glance that told him he didn't belong became fuel for something greater. He turned that pain into progress, that moment of rejection into a blueprint for revenge, not through anger, but through achievement. He built his business brick by brick, deal by deal. Each contract he signed, each property he developed, brought him closer to something that once seemed impossible. And when the opportunity came, when that same luxury hotel chain went up for sale years later, Malik didn't hesitate. He bought it. Every location, every wall that had once looked down on him. But for Malik, ownership wasn't just victory. It was transformation. He didn't buy the chain to gloat or to prove a point. He bought it to change what it stood for. He restructured management, diversified leadership, and turned the company into a symbol of equality, dignity, and opportunity. The very things he'd been denied that day. Sometimes, when he walked through the same lobby that once refused him, staff would greet him with respect, unaware of the history written in that space. He never told them. He didn't need to. His presence was the reminder. His success was the lesson. Racism may have tried to shame him, but he turned it into his story of power. Because the greatest revenge isn't shouting back. It's standing taller, owning the very ground that once pushed you down. And maybe that's the question we should all be asking. How many more Maliks will it take before dignity doesn't have to be earned? It's simply given? Don't miss more powerful real-life stories. Hit subscribe now.